So I'm not a full-blown hip-hop head or anything, but I think rap music is probably some of the most exciting music that you can listen to on vinyl. So today on the Vinyl Narrative, I'm going to cover 7 albums that I believe are essential, and it's for the rhymes and the stories, in the lyrics, it's the beats, and just the vibe you get from listening to these albums on vinyl. Alright, so let's get into this list. Number 1 on my list is A Tribe Called Quest's The Low End Theory. Now, this is just an essential record because it redefined hip-hop sound by basically fusing jazz bass lines with boom bap drums. And the production itself is kind of sparse, but at the same time it's really powerful. You've got the kind of low-end frequencies that feature throughout this album. They're just kind of made for the format of vinyl, in my opinion. And it's one of the most influential albums in the alternative hip-hop genre, so both sonically and lyrically. And this pressing that I've got in my hands here is the Vinyl Me Please Record of the Month in their Essentials track, cut across 245 RPM discs. It's cut really loud, and the deep bass clarity just kicks through. And it really makes those upright bass lines by the jazz legend Ron Carter really stand out. I love it. And, I think this is probably Phife Dawg's kind of moment in the spotlight as an MC. He probably didn't get to shine too much on the previous album, but on this record he absolutely did. And, the album's closer, Scenario, actually introduced Busta Rhymes to the world in probably the most explosive way possible. It's just an amazing closer to an amazing album, so check that track out if you haven't, but definitely pick this one up. This is The Low End Theory by A Tribe Called Quest. Okay, we're moving into the 80s now with De La Soul's 3 Feet High and Rising. Now, this is a psychedelic, whimsical masterpiece that kind of turned hip-hop into something really playful and surreal. Its use of kind of obscure samples and classroom humour and the skits kind of created this album that was unlike anything that came before it, and you could probably argue ever since as well. And this edition I've got here is the VMP Essentials Record of the Month edition. It preserves all the original samples that were released back in '89, but sadly the recent kind of reissues, they've had to drop a lot of those samples due to clearance problems. So if you want to hear this album in the best way possible, the way that the artist intended it, try to pick up the VMP Essentials edition. I'd recommend this over the original copy as well, because this sounds fantastic. Spread across 2 LPs as well. But yeah, this album, it invented the so-called kind of daisy age, which, it didn't mean flower power, it meant kind of experimentation and freedom within hip-hop. And I think De La Soul kind of hated being called hippies. They were just, trying to carve out their own space for imagination and weirdness and joy that I think we all grew to love them for. So yeah, just an amazing seminal album from De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising. Okay, next up we have the Beastie Boys, Licensed to Ill. Now, this was the first kind of rap album to hit number 1 on the US Billboard 200 chart, and it broke down those walls between kind of rap and rock. It started to combine kind of hard-hitting 808 drums with kind of distorted guitar riffs, and it makes for this kind of wild genre-smashing ride, if you will. It's just kind of bratty and chaotic, and I don't think anyone's ever quite matched it, or matched Beastie Boys as a group, actually. And the first pressings of this record, this is a UK first pressing, and they just have a really nice kind of analogue thump to those 808 kick drums. But to be honest, the reissues of this record I've heard are really good as well, so don't necessarily go all out trying to get a first issue. This production is just kind of timeless, and it hits hard on vinyl. And you'd expect that because it's produced by Rick Rubin, and he actually produced this in his college dorm room, I believe, which is quite crazy to think of, especially these days. But he kind of set the tone for kind of Def Jam's signature sound. It's just pure chaos, in the best way possible, and it sounds fantastic on vinyl, especially when you crank it really loud. Yeah, so there we go, the Beastie Boys, Licensed to Ill. Next up we have Madlib, Shades of Blue. Now this is a rare instrumental hip hop record that kind of truly needs to be heard on vinyl. He remixed and reimagined the Blue Note catalogue into this kind of dusty, jazzy, beats driven stonker of an album, if I'm honest. It's kind of head nodding, but it's kind of hypnotic as well at the same time. It's really perfect for kind of late night sessions. And this is the kind of Blue Note Classics series, the 75 series, a AAA cut by Kevin Gray. It's just warm, it's dynamic, and it brings out the kind of soul of the jazz instrumentals out really, really nicely. And fun fact is that Blue Note actually gave Madlib full access to their archives, which is just kind of unheard of today. You definitely wouldn't get that kind of permission, but you know, what he kind of delivered back was almost a love letter to jazz, filtered through kind of an NPC, if you will. It sounds fantastic, definitely an essential record to have in your hip hop collection, and it also starts to bridge the gap into jazz as well. So 2 for the price of 1, Madlib, Shades of Blue. Okay, and at number 4 we have Run DMC, Raising Hell. Now this album, it didn't just break records, it kind of broke down boundaries. It's actually the first hip hop album to go multi-platinum, and it kind of made rap mainstream while still sounding quite gritty. And it's kind of much like their label mates, the Beastie Boys, who we've already talked about. The collision of drum machines and just gritty guitars kind of made it like a cultural event, almost like a coming together of genres. And this is a UK first pressing. They kind of bring that classic kind of mid-80s grit, and it's a nice light vinyl. I really like thin vinyl for my hip hop. For some reason, I don't know why, it just comes across really nicely. But there is a VMP reissue of this, which kind of adds a lot of detail, I've been told, without kind of losing that raw punch. So if you can't pick up the first pressing, I'd say the VMP edition is also a good contender for you to pick up. And Walk This Way, obviously this is the album with that signature track on it, with Aerosmith. It wasn't just kind of a crossover track. It kind of literally revived rap on MTV, which is kind of weird to talk about now because MTV is just, pales in comparison to what it used to be. But anyway, without this album, hip hop might have kind of stayed underground for a few years longer. So I think we kind of have Run DMC to thank for bringing it into the mainstream. So there we go, Run DMC, Raising Hell. Going slightly more modern now with Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. Now this is kind of hip hop as like high art. It's a sprawling, kind of politically charged, jazz-infused epic that just kind of challenges you to listen really closely. It's almost like the perfect hip hop album for those kind of late night experiences with your turntable. This is just a standard reissue. I think from the kind of 2022, I believe it was, this was reissued, this copy, but there is an anniversary edition that you can pick up that was released recently, with kind of an alternative cover art and packaging. But you know, for me, I've got to have the classic cover, and there's a nice, like, I don't know if it'll come off on the, it probably won't come off the camera, there's a bit of spot gloss here and here that kind of reveals a kind of a hidden message on the record, but I won't spoil that for in case you want to pick it up. But yeah, just a great way to experience this album on vinyl. It's just a classic record, a modern classic, and Kendrick actually pulled in some heavyweight artists on this record. So you've got kind of people from modern jazz like Kamasi Washington, Thundercat, Robert Glasper is on there, and it just results in this kind of fusion of like black music history and forward-thinking rap that's just, I think, going to be studied for decades to come. So yeah, a modern classic rap record from Kendrick Lamar, To Pimp a Butterfly. Okay, last but not least, we have a real heavy hitter, the Wu-Tang Clan's Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers. Now this is a dirty and dusty and utterly iconic record. There's no frills, there's no polish. It's just raw bars and gritty beats and a whole new kind of mythology, if you will, around rap music. This album just kind of made it cool to be rugged again. It almost introduced 9 incredible MCs, all with their own distinct personalities in one go on one record. And they've all since had such incredible careers, some cut short unfortunately, but just amazing record. And this is the Vinyl Me Please edition, on kind of a dirty yellow record, cut across 2 LPs and cut at 33 RPM. It kind of raised the bar, I think, for the pressings of this album, while still kind of respecting that lo-fi aesthetic. But I think any pressing is going to capture the charm of this album. It's nothing about fidelity on this record. It's all about the feeling. And RZA, he produced this album in a rundown Staten Island basement, so with no budget as well, and it just kind of gave it that DIY grit and almost like their signature eerie sounds, and that kind of reshaped East Coast rap music overnight. So yeah, an incredible record, one of my favourite albums of all time. Yeah, there we go. Enter the Wu-Tang Clans. Enter the Wu-Tang by the Wu-Tang Clan. So even if you're not into hip hop, I think these 7 albums they're a great cross section that shows what the genre can do, from kind of tight bars and raw beats, kind of genre pushing and boundary pushing creativity. Have I missed any kind of essentials that you'd expect to see in this top 7? Let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, The Vinyl Narrative. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.